In this video, we're going to practice converting between degrees and radians. We already know that pi radians is equivalent to 180 degrees. We're going to make use of this fact to do all of the calculations in this video. So question number 1 says convert 61 degrees to radians and then round to the nearest tenth. So what we can do is we can simply set it up as pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. Therefore, we'll say x radians is equal to 61 degrees. And really what we have here is a proportion that we can easily solve by multiplying both sides by 61. So x is equal to 61 times pi divided by 180. Okay, so I'll take out my calculator and evaluate 61 times pi divided by 180. Okay, so apparently 61 degrees is approximately equal to 1.06 radians, but since I want it to the nearest tenth, I will simply write 1.1. Now you can leave it as 1.1 with no units, and it will be understood as radians, or you can write rads or rad, either way. Question number 2, express 4.2 radians in degrees. We're going the other way now. So we're going to round to the nearest degree here. Again, we can set up this proportion where we have pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. Therefore, 4.2 radians is equal to, well, I'll use d, is equal to d degrees. In this case, we can manipulate the formula so that we end up with d is equal to 180 times 4.2 divided by pi equals. Okay, so it's just a matter of going to the calculator. This is probably one of the easiest calculations you'll do in all of Math 30-1. 180 times 4.2 divided by pi. Okay, and we end up with, rounded to the nearest degree, 241 degrees. Okay, so at this point, after you're doing a few of these, you might say, gee, I wonder if there's a shortcut. And certainly there is. Basically what we do here is, if I go back to question number 1, if you're taking an angle in degrees and converting it to radians, you're basically multiplying by pi over 180. Okay? Whereas in the case where you're going from radians to degrees, you're essentially multiplying the radian measure by 180 over pi, right? So it's either pi over 180 or 180 over pi. Let's apply this shortcut to the next two questions. So we want to express 105 degrees as an exact value in radians, so no more rounding. So there is that little twist as well in question number 3. But what we can do here is we can say, from doing a lot of these, we have a shortcut, which is to say, if you want to take a degree measure and turn it into radians, you need to just multiply that by pi over 180. Okay, and that's what we did in question number 1, right? We multiplied here by pi over 180. That will give you the radian measure. Okay, we'll worry about the exact value in a minute. So degrees times pi over 180, so I've got 105 degrees times pi over 180. Now, if I actually punch this through on my calculator like I did with the first two questions, then I'm going to get a decimal, a long-winded, non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. And so that will be difficult to convert into an exact value. So what I can do is I can take 105 divided by 180. Okay, so let me just see here. So 105 divided by 180. Okay, that gives me 0.583 repeating. Any repeating decimal can be expressed as a fraction, so then I can use my calculator, hit math, then convert it to a fraction, so enter twice, and you get 7 over 12. Okay, so I end up with 7 over 12, but because the pi is still there, it's 7 pi over 12. So I effectively avoid the non-terminating, non-repeating decimal by just leaving pi out of it for now, reducing 105 over 180, and then getting 7 pi over 12, or 7 over 12. And since the pi wasn't involved, it just is an innocent bystander, and we just write it next to it. Okay. Similarly, if we're going to go the other way, from radians to degrees, we saw from example number 2 that all you need to do is take your radian measure right here and multiply by the ratio 180 over pi. Multiplying by 180 over pi is the equivalent of multiplying by 1 because 180 degrees is equivalent to pi radians. So radians times 180 over pi. Okay, that's what will give you the degree measure. Okay, so the radian measure here is 17 pi over 3. This one's actually going to be a little bit easier than example number 3. Times 180 over pi, and you can see that in one case I have a pi upstairs, and in the other case I have a pi downstairs. So 17 over 3 times 180, I can further reduce this. 3 goes into itself once, 3 goes into 180 60 times. So I end up with 17 times 60, which as everybody knows is, I believe it's 1020 degrees. Okay? And that's how you convert between radians and degrees.